Wake that ass up early in the morning. The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Charlamagne the God. We are the Breakfast Club. We got some special guests joining us this morning. Of course, we got friend to the room and family, attorney Benjamin Crump. Welcome back, brother.
King.
And when you see Ben, you know it's business about to happen.
You know it's business.
Okay, serious business is on the table.
Right, we have Ayanna Parsons and Arian Simone. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Now, we've been reading about this in the news, man, the Fearless Fund.
The Fearless Fund.
First of all, what is the Fearless Fund, and why is this white man trying to stop the Fearless Fund's motion?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my gosh. The Fearless Fund is the first venture capital fund that is built by women of color for women of color, backed by Bank of America, Ally Bank, MasterCard, Costco, JP Morgan Chase, and a host of other corporations. We invest in CPG, we invest in technology, we've invested in Slutty Vegan, we've invested in Lip Bar, many companies that you guys know. There is an attempt and attack, of course, to stop the work that we are doing because we are creating generational wealth. We are reducing the wealth gap. We are in the business of job creation. That's why there's an attempt to stop it. And we are creating the next billionaires and multimillionaires of women of color entrepreneurs.
There we go.
Why is this attack happening, you think, Attorney Benjamin Crump?
Well, she didn't even say they raised $100 million, DJ Envy, these brilliant, strong black women. But the attack is happening. It's real simple.
Edward Bloom,
Charlamagne Envy. You're talking about a front page news story. I love what y'all do with Tez Figueroa, by the way.
Love Tez, yeah.
This guy was the same guy who attacked affirmative action by suing North Carolina and Harvard, saying that they were discriminating against white people, even though less than 2% were getting into Harvard and these Ivy League schools. Now, this guy has attacked these sisters and black women and women of color. Charlamagne Envy, he said that they are discriminating against white women and white men, even though white men make up over 96% of venture fund money. You think about this. Black women, Hispanic people, black people, women, all minorities only make up 4%, Charlamagne and Envy. But because they get 4%, he said, oh, you discriminating against white men, even though they got 96% of all the trillions of dollars in venture capital fund. It is a frivolous attempt to prevent women from progress, to prevent women from having a seat at the table. As a father of a 10-year-old black girl, I look at what Arian and Ayanna have done, raising $100 million, Charlamagne and Envy, to say that black women can have a seat at the table, that they can be entrepreneurs. That's the only way we're going to close the wealth gap.
That's right. I got 4 black daughters, so I love the work that y'all are doing. Is it illegal for somebody to have a venture capitalist fund that's specific to a certain group?
No, I mean, listen, our premise is that when you solve for the most marginalized, the most overlooked, the most underfunded, the most unsupported, that helps us all. We all know that there's a significant business case for diversity. But let's look at some of these numbers. So our thesis is around women of color. That's black, it's Hispanic, it's also Asian and Native American. And when you look at the percentage of the U.S. population that these women make up, that's 20%. So make that math make sense. How is it that they get less than 0.4% of the funding? This is equity. That's what this is about. And it's economic freedom. So if we don't exist, who's going to look out for us?
That's right.
Who's going to look out for us?
Why do you think women of color don't get the money that they're supposed to get?
It's systemic.
They're women of color.
And it's beyond being systemic, it's also proximity. So if white men make up 90-something% of the investors, when you even take out racism and you take out sexism, it's still proximity. I'm an avid believer that if you can diversify the investors, you can diversify the investments.
Arian, let me build on that, because that's profound. So there's some data out there that 100%, let me back this up, 80% of white Americans in the country have networks that are 100% white. Let me say it again. 80% of white Americans have networks that are 100% white. So when she's talking about proximity, what it means, if you're black or brown, you were 8, 9, 10 times more likely to have networks that are black and brown. It makes sense. So if you got all the white investors, right, that are making the deals, who are they doing those deals with?
The white people.
There we go.
Just proximity. And it's unfortunate because it's not just that we get a fraction of percent of the venture capital funds, is that we are actually the most founded entrepreneurial demographic.
Yeah.
So we are the largest. We are starting businesses more than anybody else, but still getting the least.
Yeah.
So Edward is saying that y'all are practicing unlawful racial discrimination. Where's he even getting these accusations from?
You know, it's this, again, Charlamagne, the intellectual justification of discrimination is rampant in America now after the last president and what the governor in Florida are doing. I mean, they are saying that they're going to take back all the civil rights, whether it's voting, whether it's police enforcement, whether it's equity. What they have done is a sea change in the system. Can you imagine these bold, courageous women saying that we're going to have a seat at the table? And guess what? They're women of color. And they're saying that if we can have a ball in the bat, we can play the game just as good as y'all. And that's a threat to Edward Bloom. They don't want to see diversity have a chance at economic freedom. This case, Charlamagne and Envy, is just as important as George Floyd or any other case out there. But we have to keep talking about these cases and Henrietta Latt's case because it is talking about economic freedom for our people. And that is the most important thing we can give our children, especially our beautiful boys and girls.
Now, who is Edward Bloom for people that don't know? Who is he? And why does he seem like he have a lot of power?
Well, you said that in the beginning, Ben. I think you should repeat that about how he played a role in rejecting affirmative action in college admissions.
Yeah, you know, Charlamagne, he is focused on trying to get rid of anything affirmative action. He started with higher education. Now he's going to the venture capitalist field. After that, if he succeeds in that, then minority business enterprise, he's coming there next. And then after that, he's coming to regular employees, saying that anybody who was hired to try to have more diversity, any diversity, equity, and inclusion, all of that is discriminatory and it's illegal. And we have to remember over and over again that these guys will stop at nothing to make sure that we are marginalized, that our children are marginalized, that our grandchildren are marginalized. So this is a war. And I'm so proud to defend these two sisters who are leading the effort for economic freedom for our people. Edward Bloom was successful at the United States Supreme Court. He's emboldened now. And so we got to be emboldened too.
Yeah, I don't think people are paying attention. Like even, in Hollywood, there was 4 diversity, equity, and inclusion leaders who got fired within a week. And I think they were all black women, if I'm not mistaken.
Black women.
Yeah, and I feel like nobody even said a word about that.
And so that's why I'm so happy we're on the Breakfast Club because, what you all are doing with this and the front page news is engaging our people, it's educating our people, and it's empowering our people. And I know there's a lot of things that are appealing. I love what's going on in Montgomery and everything, but this is far more important when we talk about building generational wealth and giving our people freedom. Forget this, when they talk about, we want to have access. No. What we want is to have our money to be able to give to our children. And these quotes, these statistics that Arian and Ayanna talk about, they are so real. They talk about the wealth gap. I think it's $125,000 average savings for white Americans. For black Americans, they say it's about $23,000. We will never close that wealth gap unless we do something profound. Home ownership ain't gonna be enough. I'm suing Wells Fargo talking about home ownership, but the real way to close this economic gap is entrepreneurship. We owning our own businesses. That's what we can do to close this gap quickly. Think about all the rich people in the world. They didn't get rich from home ownership. They got rich because they own businesses. And that's what Aaron and Ayanna are doing, helping women of color, all women of color, say, hold on, this grant is going to help you come up with the next Ring doorbell. or help you come up with the next slutty vegan. I'm sorry.
Listen, I'm living proof. I mean, my husband and I, we co-founded a company called Yardstick Management 11 years ago, and it is the nation's leading Black-owned management consulting firm. Not just Black-owned, leading management consulting firm. We sold that company to private equity in January. They tucked it into another company. But that enabled the very economic freedom that we're talking about. And I got an 11-year-old Black daughter, a 4-year-old Black daughter. My 11-year-old, she says, Mom, I've been the chief of staff since day one. But imagine how we're empowering these young people through this work.
I was going to ask, so how do you go about deciding what you're going to invest in, right? You talk about some of the investments that you made, whether it was Slutty Vegan or some of these other businesses. How do you guys decide how are you going to invest? Because a lot of people don't have the entrepreneurial spirit or don't know about what they need. They just know, I want to create this business and I know this is going to work. And a lot of times it does work. So how do you go about investing into these businesses?
Well, there's 4 indicators that we do look at when we do invest. We look at how strong the brand story is. We look at how strong the product is, how strong the team is, and additionally, how much traction they have. But I will say that there is a level of, I would call, intangible attributes. And it comes just even from pure instinct. There are entrepreneurs who may not be as polished, but I'm like, if they have a hustler's attitude, they operate in the spirit of integrity, we can find some corporate people to surround them with. Like, we can get certain things on board, but we can't replace that hustler spirit.
That's right.
We can't replace that. We can't replace character. So there are some things that are intangible. But when you talk about resources, we don't just operate in the spirit of funding, which is number one, is the lack of access to capital. But we also realized there was also a lack of access to the resources and the ecosystem as a whole. So we created the Fearless Foundation. And through our foundation, we issue our grant programs. Through our foundation, we issue our education programs. We have educated over 1,000 women of color co-founders each year. Wow. So we make sure that we provide them with the necessary tools they need to succeed, in addition to the funding.
Question, was there a particular moment that got you on these people's radar? Like, was it somebody y'all invested in? Like, what was it?
Can I say this for the answer to that? They asked that question over and over again. Why would Bloom pick these Black women? And you know what I think it is, Charlamagne? He thought that they would be the easiest ones to pick off. And oh, brother, he picked the wrong sisters because these sisters are cut from the same cloth as Harriet Tubman, as Eleanor Roosevelt, as Coretta Scott King, as Rosa Parks. I mean, I think about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, what she was trying to do when she talked about empowering women and saying women too have a right to be at the table. And you got 4 daughters, my Black daughter, and I think about them.
With a Black woman, too. That's very important to say. I have 4 beautiful Black daughters with a beautiful Black woman.
And it's so important, though, y'all, because I think about Christine Simmons and the Academy Awards, how they dismissed those 4 women of color. They are coming after us on every front, and we better wake up and get ready to stay up late at night and get up early in the morning to fight these enemies of equality. The courts, and I'm a lawyer, and so I always have to watch what I say, but I don't care. When you think about it, Charlamagne, I've said it before, people of color get the most of injustice and the least of justice. So we better be fighting in the court of public opinion, and that's why I'm so grateful. I can never thank y'all enough for doing Front Page News with Tesla and Figaro, because it's just talking about substance. The people love you all, and the young people are listening, and they're the people who we got to get, because ultimately we have to make sure that our children are more intelligent than those who would seek to oppress them.
So what can people do to help, right? Because
I was about to go there.
I was going to ask, because people are lined up with their folding chairs. If you need them, they're lined up.
We throwing off hats.
With hats. We
don't forget
finances.
Don't forget the guns. Never mind. Go ahead.
But what can people do to help? Like, how can they support?
Yes, people can go to www.fearlessfreedomnow.org. Again, that's www.fearlessfreedomnow.org. They can sign the petition. They can support our grant programs. They can invest in the fund. They can attend our venture capital summit that's coming up August 18th.
and 19th.
Yes.
Right.
And yes, Envy, you've spoken at it before. They can support in those ways. So the website has every way that you can mobilize, support us. We will have even more information coming out. We even are developing a legislative ask for this. I'm like, if you want to use the law against us, we need to find